Okay, we're going to be talking about the Gospels today. Now, there are four Gospels, and first of all, Gospels means good news. So anytime we're talking about the Gospel, it means that we're giving the good news. And the four Gospels are Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So those are the four. Those are the names of those Gospels. Now, Matthew is the first Gospel. It's the longest Gospel, and it was written for a Jewish Christian audience. And it starts off with the genealogy of Jesus. And what I mean by genealogy is that it shows, Jesus' family tree. And since it was written for a Jewish audience, it shows us Jesus' connection to Abraham and David, which would have been very, very important to the Jewish people because they wanted to make sure that their Messiah was related to David because that's what the Old Testament prophesied. So it was very important to show Jesus' connection to David. So that's why Matthew includes that. It was also written by the evangelist Matthew. All the evangelists are what they are. They're the writers of the gospel. Sorry, and it got covered up there, but an evangelist is one of the writers of the four gospels. That's the definition of an evangelist. Now, Mark is the shortest and the most action-packed gospel, and it starts with John the Baptist preaching in the wilderness. So, he's preparing the way of the Lord, and that's how Mark starts out. It's really a very short gospel, and it gets straight to the point. And it was also written by, obviously, the evangelist Mark. And remember, once again, evangelist is one of the gospel writers. So there's four evangelists. Now, Luke was written for Gentile Christians. So a Gentile is a non-Jew. Remember, Matthew was written for the Jewish audience. A Gentile was a non-Jew. So you and I are non-Jews. So we're considered Gentiles. Because of this, he mentions political leaders because that's what we would be interested in. We want to know what the history of what's going on. We're going to be more interested in those people. So, for example, he mentions Caesar. And so he also traces the genealogy back to Adam because he wants to show that Jesus saved all people, not just the Jewish race, but all people. It starts with the appearance of Gabriel to Zechariah and Mary, where Gabriel comes and tells Zechariah that he's going to have a son, John the Baptist, and Mary is going to have a son, Jesus. And it was once again written by the evangelist Luke. Remember, once again, evangelist is one of the gospel writers. Luke was a doctor, and he also wrote the Acts of the Apostles. And I'm sorry, that got cut off as well, but he wrote the Acts of the Apostles. John is the very, very different of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. You saw at the corner of every one it said a synoptic gospel. Matthew, Mark, and Luke are synoptic, meaning they all go together. John is very different. It has less stories and it has more detail. It's more poetic and it has more symbolism. So it's going to mention things like Jesus being the Lamb of God and all that kind of stuff. He's going to have all that symbolism in there. There are no parables in John's gospel, and it's only a few healings. And it was also written by the evangelist John, who is, we've studied this already. He's the beloved disciple. It's the same one there. He also wrote the three epistles, and then he also wrote the book of Revelation, which is chock full of symbolism. So it makes sense that John wrote both this gospel and the book of Revelation. Okay, that's all I have for you tonight. Make sure you go ahead and take the quiz, and I will see you tomorrow.